hear from you. But before we go on any further, I certainly want to introduce Sean Brescia of Clearpath Management tonight because he really has worked extremely hard to pull things together for us and lead us in the right direction. So I'd like to introduce Sean and have Sean to acknowledge what he's been doing with the Senator Community Trust.
It's pretty powerful to see how full the house is. The main purpose for tonight was to get everybody together and have an opportunity to put all the facts out on the table, help everyone understand the timeline at play here and what's happening. I know there's been a lot of confusion and speculation publicly in the media about what's happening. We saw this as an opportunity to try to get everybody in a room, give you guys an opportunity to ask questions. Hopefully we'll have some answers. I thank Councilman Henry for showing up. He can probably speak from the city's perspective and shed some light on things that they've been working on within the steering committee that's been focusing on this. But I thought we'd take a moment just briefly to try to set the stage. I think given all of the questions and speculation and information that's sort of been floating around, little bits and pieces out there, I think it's become the case that we maybe have lost sight or run the potential of losing sight of what the senator means to all of us and why we're all really here and why this room is full. Me personally, a lot of people said, what are you doing? Why are you involved in this? How do you get on? What's your role in all of this? And I'm a volunteer who just kind of came upon this situation, got to understand a little bit more about it, and thought that it was a real travesty that he was sort of out there on his own without people really understanding what he was up against and how he got to be in the place that he's in now. To me, and I think to understand that, you have to think back to what the senator really means to all of us, because the fact of the matter is he got in the place that he's in because of what the senator means to him and his vision for it being the People's Theater and eventually being transitioned back to this community. It's about a lot more than the scores of sidewalk blocks outside, even though there are lots of neat signatures that we all like to go look at and walk over. It's certainly a lot more than speculation about debt and numbers and blame and bad business practices and how did this go wrong and that sort of thing. It's about a 70-year legacy over 4 generations that and the last 20 years of which has been one guy who's literally sacrificed, at this point, everything because of his belief in a vision to transition this one day into the People's Theater and then one day show up in the audience with his grandkids and be able to say, Grandpa helped build this thing for the community. It's about an icon, this building that was for a long period of time alone on this street for over a decade. Standing alone, fighting to stay open against industry trends, practices that make it almost impossible for any single-screen theater to stay open, while the commercial properties across the street lay in neglect. And I think a lot of you have been here a lot longer than I have and can remember that period of time. A lot of the debt that's been tossed around publicly and used to lay blame came from that period of time, fighting to stay open. As a beacon for hope and economic development in an area that really was being neglected by its city. Eventually $5 million ended up across the street, nothing ended up here. Nothing of substance anyway. It's about a grandmother who has risked her life savings in her retirement, believing in that same vision to keep this alive for the community. One of the first generations that had this theater. She's watched it change hands and she's watched it grow and she's kept hope that it would eventually become the People's Theater and the community would step up and take it over and keep it that way. It's about a mother and a wife who calls her family around a table every once in a while and says, you know what, no matter how bad things get, no matter what we lose, even if we lose everything, we'll stay a family. We'll stick together. It's about a daughter who grew up running through the halls of this thing just like her dad, who is a senior in high school, wondering where she's going to college and how she's going to pay for it, and sharing that burden that her family shares in carrying on the legacy of this place. It's about staff who just recently, in the face of everything that's going on, came to Tom and said, all the while making the modest wages that they do, they came to Tom and they said, I'm here, I know that you can't afford to pay us much longer, I just want you to know when you can't anymore that we'll be here to volunteer and help keep the doors open as long as we can. And it's about this community, all the people I mentioned, a lot of people in this room and countless others who over the last 20 years have raised literally millions of dollars in funds through fundraisers that this building hosted for other causes other than its own, other than Tom, other than his family. Millions of dollars. And we've got a document that's about 12 pages long in 12-point font without skipping spaces of all of the foundations just last year that benefited from nonprofit money that was raised through events that were held here at the center. And so I thought, the reason I bring all of that up is it's one to set the stage. I think it's important to remember why we're all here, why we're involved, and the different levels that we're involved. Hopefully, inspire more people to become involved. But it's not about bad business practices and debt and where that debt came from. Because for all the debt, there's a million reasons you can point to where that debt came from. And for all the accusations about bad business practices, there's as many accolades nationwide for a guy who found a way all these years to keep this little single-screen theater open, winning numerous national awards all that time, being named in a list of the top 10 theaters nationwide, time and time again. While some people here did nothing but blame him for the way he was running the business. So I think I wanted to kind of set the stage and help people remember that's why we're here. It's about now the community coming together to carry on that legacy. He's fought to keep it alive as long as he can. He closed the doors today. This is the first day of hopefully a new era and the last day of a 70-year legacy. But hopefully one that can be carried on our shoulders if we can find a way to come together and take this into under a new structure, a new ownership, new operation, and find a way to carry it forward. So after that moment, I'll pass it back.